Welcome back to another edition of Inwarp Mag. I am Brooke, joined as always by my co-host Drew.
Hey guys, I'm just trying to get Discord up so you can see our lovely faces. We're happy to have you back for another episode. We've had some exciting news drop today.
Yeah, definitely. We've had the balanced data slate drop, and with it, there are some new detachments. So, Drew, what are we going to be talking about today?
Yeah, to me, this is like the most exciting part of our balanced data slate this quarter is we get three new detachments. We get an Ork detachment, a Tau detachment, and a Adeptus Custodes detachment. Today, we are going to do a deep dive of the Ork detachment because I'm an Ork player. I want to talk about the Ork detachment because I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, definitely. But before we get to that, I think we should do some shout outs for the Discord that we have public. If you were paying attention to the last video that we put up, we added a Discord link, and it will be added to this video. If you go to the description, you can see the Discord link that we have. We have a public Discord that you can join, and we just want to shout out the first two members of our Discord. We have Rob and Fallen King, and we really appreciate you guys for joining the Discord. And we've had a good time this week interacting with you guys, and we hope to see more of you join the Discord.
Yeah, so the second thing we want to shout out is we started a coffee account. So if you guys want to support us in any way, feel free to support us on coffee. Right now, we're thinking more like one time donations. We don't really have any ideas yet for what memberships would look like. We're kind of working through that still. So if you want to contribute something, if you're financially stable and stuff like that, and you want to contribute something, we will accept your support and we will be super grateful for it. But only donate if you feel like you can do it. So we're good. Me and Brooke are good. But if you want to support the show, we would be super grateful. Um, and
Definitely.
and just kind of to touch back on Discord, to join our Discord, it's absolutely free. You do not need to donate or anything. It's open to anybody. I don't think we want to have our Discord like pay to play type thing. That's stupid. So if you want
Yeah,
to
definitely.
communicate with us and contribute to the show and get content you want, the Discord is open to everybody.
Yeah, and recently we've been kind of sharing our hobby progress and some of our hobby pictures, and it's really cool. Rob, you've shown some really great images so far on the Discord, some of your progress and some of your setup, and really appreciate seeing that side of things. And I know I haven't yet, but I will be showing some of my own hobby progress and some of the work that I've done and some of my models. But yeah, it's a really cool place to hang out and talk, and we've been answering some questions on rules and join up and talk to us. We'll be try to be active on there and answer questions.
Yeah, I owe a picture of my commandos. I talked about it, I think, in our New Year episode. So I need to. I finished painting my commandos. I need to post a picture of those and put them in Discord to share with you all. Um, and then one last final thing is if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel if you're listening. If you haven't subscribed, I think about 70% of our listeners aren't subscribed. So if you're listening and you aren't, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be aware of any of our future videos.
So let's get right into it. So, what is the new Ork Detachment?
All right, so give me 1 minute. I worked hard today and I put a little presentation together in the afternoon. Let me find it real quick. All right, so the new detachment is called More Dakka, Dakka, which
Heck
yeah. So I think every orc player is happy to have this because this was one of the gaps in all of the detachments that we had for orcs. We really didn't have anything to. If you look at all the factions that orcs have, for instance, we didn't have anything to fill in for the Bad Moons detachment. This fills that gap.
So, just so our viewers are aware, GW put out an announcement for the balanced data slate, and they really appreciated the reception that they got for the Grotmas detachments that they released. So they are making an effort to release detachments every single balanced data slate, which will be quarterly. So this is the first batch of detachments that are released, and it includes our Ork detachment that we're going to be talking about today. So, what is the More Dakka detachment?
Yeah, let's get right into it. So let's get into the detachment rule first. So the new detachment for orcs is here are the rules. In your shooting phase, you get sustained hits 2 for orc infantry and orc walker units. Like, this is amazing. This is going to be
It's really
so
freaking
much
good.
fun. Yeah, sustained hits 2 is so good. If you've been playing with flash gits at all since 10th edition, where we have sustained hits 1, that unit feels so good. And to get sustained hits 2 on all of your orc infantry and orc walker units is going to be awesome. Now, let me preface this with, it says specifically in your shooting phase. So if you're going to overwatch, you're not going to get sustained hits 2, which
Right.
is a feels bad, but this is how we're able to play such a good detachment rule and it be balanced. We don't get sustained hits 2 in Overwatch, but during our turn, we're going to be pretty stinking good.
Yeah, somebody who's played up against Inner Circle companions from Bear, they have sustained hits 2 in their melee profile. Sustained hits 2 is super powerful. You can spike incredible shots with sustained hits 2. If you roll a bunch of 6s, you're gonna get a ton of shots. You're gonna net positive on your shooting output and get some insane shooting. I feel like even though you mentioned flash gets, even though flash gets, they have sustained hits 1, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, replacing that with a sustained hits 2 makes them so much scarier because every single 6 is going to give you that extra hit, as opposed to what they normally give you. So even your things that in your faction give you that sustained hits 1, they're getting that benefit still with the sustained hits 2. And I think this also brings into play a lot of your bigger walkers that I think we're going to talk about here in a second.
Yeah, yeah, exactly like you said. So, like, if you played with flash gets, sustained hits 1 feels great. This is a slight glam up from sustained hits 1, but this is applying to all your orc infantry and walker units. It's going to be really good. So, one thing I want to say before we get further into this, you may be thinking like, why do I care about this new orc detachment? I'm not playing orcs. Well, if in your local meta, you might be playing against an orcs player, and hopefully this can get you in a mindset of what to expect if you're playing against an orcs player. So I hope this will be useful to anybody, whether you play orcs or whether you might be playing against an orcs player. Um,
Right.
so additionally, the More Dakka detachment is going to get assault on the Wa turn for all infantry and walker units, which is going to be just completely bonkers. So just you still get the faction Wa rule. So just think, on Wa you get assault and you get uh charge,
Advanced charge.
advance, and charge. It's so good.
And all your defensive buffs and all that. It just like modifies your WA to be super flexible for every single unit in the Orc faction.
Mm-hmm.
Like all your shooty units in the Orc faction, like Flash Gits, and you could say some of the Dread mob style units, like the Killicans and things like that. Everything is going to get a buff that's applicable to them, even if they aren't the strongest in melee, which is kind of incredible. It takes it from the Wa being a melee focused ability to, well, now you actually have a ton of mobility available to you with advance and shoot with since you get assault. That adds a ton of utility to your list that you otherwise wouldn't get.
Well, here's the thing. Like, the Stampa is a walker, so it benefits from this detachment rule, and it has
Oh, dang.
bonkers shooting. Now
So
I don't
it's
own.
able to move pretty far.
Well, yeah, it's able to move far, which is always the problem with walkers in orcs is they're very slow, so it's difficult to get shots on things. But as soon as you get assault, it opens up a whole new can of worms for you where you're able to move up and shoot. You might be able to get angles that you couldn't get before and get a shot on things. But there are some drawbacks with it, which we'll get into later. But this feels like a very, very solid detachment. I think if I had to rank it among the existing orc detachments, I think it's third best. But
Wow.
it's good
Behind what?
behind Warhorde and Tactical Brigade.
Okay. Wow.
Tactical,
So this is pretty strong then, you think?
yeah. So like Warhorde is just so good. Warhorde is amazing. Tactical Brigade is very good too. It's so flexible. All of the stratagems, the detachment is so good that you don't really need stratagems, which is what makes it good. And you have the stratagems are so flexible that they apply to almost any scenario that you'll be in the game. But this detachment, there's some cons to it that make it worse than Warhorde and Tactical Brigade. We'll get into that later.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we should move on to some of the enhancements that the detachments grant you. I know that they have some pretty cool enhancements available to them. They seem pretty orc unit specific. Maybe you have a specific unit that you want to grant a specific set of keywords because it seems very keywords heavy there. But go ahead and walk us through some of the enhancements that this detachment gives you.
Yeah, so the first enhancement is called the Gobshot Thunderbuss, which when I first read this one, because of my poor reading comprehension skills, I was super excited about it. But as soon as I reread it, I was like, oh man. So let me go through it real quick. Orc models, orc model only, ranged weapons equipped by the bearer. That's the important part.
Not the
Bearer,
bearer's unit.
yes, have the devastating wounds and hazardous ability. When I first read this, I thought it applied to the unit, and I was super excited because I was going to put it on a Pain Boy, and then I was going to run the Pain Boy with Burnas, which would
Which would be
be,
awesome.
yeah, that would be so good, having devastating wounds on your Burnas. But this applies, unfortunately, only to the bearer, which on a Pain Boy it'd be useless because he doesn't even have a ranged weapon.
So who is this applicable to then? Who would you put this on if you do put it on anybody?
It's not that good. That's why it's so cheap. You'd probably give it to the Big Mech with the shock attack gun, because he's gonna roll a d6 plus 1, I think, worth of attacks. So it's not that good. Unfortunately, it's kind of like I got 15 points to spend and I got nothing else to spend it on. I'm gonna get the Gobshot Thunderbus.
Yeah, I mean, it seems good in very specific scenarios. Like in our local meta, we have some stompy monsters, or like even yourself with like Gaz, where you need some devastating wounds to punch through, like Makari. So it's very matchup dependent, I feel like, where you need this. But I don't know. It seems okay. It's not the best, but what's the next one?
Well, we touched on it before we go to the Next one, it would be nice if orcs had more reroll on the wound mechanics, which we don't have a lot of, and that's why I thought
Yeah,
if it
fair.
applied to Burna Boys, it would be so good, but it
Yeah,
doesn't. So
they could hold
forget
an
any of that.
objective and absolutely dominate it with their reroll wounds. Like they could really dominate an objective with that ability.
Yeah, you'd have Infernus Marine Light and cheap.
Hmm.
Um,
With the reroll wounds is just crazy good. But
but
you
we
know,
don't. We
we
don't.
can dream. you know.
It'll never happen in 10th, but
Oh well.
maybe a future edition. So the next enhancement is called Dead Shiny Shootas and Orcs model only. So this is when we start getting into our good enhancements. So, an Orcs model only, ranged weapons equipped by the models in the bearer's unit have the rapid fire 1 ability, which is
That seems good.
pretty good. Um, I think just thinking of like where you would use it, it's not the greatest in this detachment because like you're gonna be just full disclosure, you're gonna be using Ludas probably a decent amount in this unit. Ludas already have rapid fire 1, so this doesn't really do much for them.
I feel like this is something that if you have the extra points to spend, you might throw this on like a war boss that's leading boys and just
Mm-hmm.
get the boys to be more effective in shooting because they're already wanting to get in melee. If they can close the distance and get in rapid fire range, even if they have the pistols, shooters, and whatever the other is it shooters that are the pistols or is it the other ones?
No, it's called Sluggas.
Sluggas, right? Okay, so even if they have sluggas and they have rapid fire 1, they're still going to be pretty effective, especially against weaker things like guard or Eldar, some things that are like the T3. Like things that are 1 wound T3 that can put a pretty big dent into those things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it might be something that, again, if you have the points available to you, you can throw it on something like a war boss that's leading some boys, and they can go up and maybe have a 20-man boys unit. You run them up, you get in rapid fire range, and you throw out a bunch of shots. You throw out 40 shots, right? Like you have a
Mm-hmm.
ton of shots out of that boys unit. Um, it seems fine. It's a good kind of decent thing that if you have the points, take it.
Yeah, look at it this way. You're going to get more dice and you might trigger more of those sustained too.
Right.
That's why you're going to take this enhancement. But it's probably this the I don't know, the second most important enhancement in this detachment. It's pretty good. But the next one is more important, which is the target and squigs. So orc model only. Each time a model in the bearer's unit makes a ranged attack, add 1 to the hit roll. Um,
Yeah, that's super good.
yeah, in orcs shooting, this is really good. So this is like getting a mech with your unit, embedded in your unit, where you don't have to worry about spending 45 points for a mech. You spend 35 points for target and squig, and you're getting +1 to your hit roll. That's really good. So this is something that you're going to probably try to always put on your big mech with shock attack gun, but if you can't fit it, it's an enhancement. So it's not a must have, but it is really good.
What unit are you hoping to lead with the Big Mac with shock attack gun?
Definitely the Ludas. So the Ludas, we'll get into this later again, but the Ludas have reroll hit rolls for anything that's standing on any targets that are standing on an objective. So this combined with that is really good because you're gonna fish for those rerolls just to get sustained.
Now, is there a leader that you would be considering for the flash gets that you could add 1 to their hit roll?
That's the biggest downgrade of this detachment. This is why Tactical Brigade is just better. Is you there is no leader for flash gets unless you're
Oh,
taking Tactical Brigade. There is an enhancement specific to Tactical Brigade that allows you to take a leader to the flash gets.
I see. Yeah, I can see why that would make tactical brigade maybe a touch better. But even adding that to a bunch of ludas, adding 1 to the hit roll is kind of incredible. It's always going to be good. I feel like that's a very strong candidate for one of the must-have enhancements.
Yeah,
So, what's the last? Oh, go
any
ahead.
yeah, before we move on, anything hitting on orc traditional orc accuracy where it's a 5 up, this is perfect for it. You
Yeah,
you want to improve it to a 4 up, um, because that's where you start doing work.
yeah. Even on something less good, even if it's like ludas, I feel like is your best bet there because they have a bunch of shots, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even on something less optimal, even just boys, right? I think that they're still decent to have +1 to hit in shooting. I think that's still good. It's still going to make them a more all-rounder unit. With a sustained
Mhm.
2 +1 to hit, it's still going to make them decent in shooting so that they can, do the combo of on the WA turn they can advance, they can shoot, they with the +1 to hit with sustained 2, then they can charge and do what orcs do in melee, like they'll mess them up in melee. It kind of makes any unit that you apply it to more of an all-rounder unit that's going to be effective in both shooting and in melee.
Mhm. If yeah, you could give this enhancement to a war boss if you wanted to soup up, like if you had a 20-man boys that was like a traditional shooters unit, you could apply it to them. If you're listening to any competitive YouTubers, they're going to tell you it sucks. But if you're playing just kind of like with a local group, it might be worth it. It might be fun. Like, do it.
It,
Try it
if you
out.
have the extra points, try it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to discourage people from doing anything, but if you're doing a tournament, it's probably not going to be great. But if you're playing with your friends at home, just try it
Why
out.
not?
It's like an extra tool that you have in your bag. So
Hmm.
the last enhancement is called. I love the name of this is Zog off and eat Dakka. Um, so Orcs models only. The bearer unit is eligible to shoot in a turn in which it fell back. Uh, it's pretty good.
I think
It's
this is low key. I know you said that uh maybe some of the other, like one of the other two were better than this. I actually think that this is low key one of the best ones. I think being able to fall back and shoot is so strong. It's so strong for something like Ludas. Like
mhm.
if you have Ludas, being able to fall back and shoot is incredible. Like I'm thinking from like if I was playing you as a Space Wolves player and I want to get in melee with you, and if I get in melee, if I tie up like a Ludas unit with a unit that can't kill them outright, obviously, but
Mhm.
like if I try to tie them up in shooting, and you're just able to be like, nah, fall back, shoot you, charge back in, what? I don't know if you can charge back in, but if you can just like fall back and shoot with sustained hits too, it's so strong. Like that is a very very strong ability that I don't think should be overlooked.
Yeah, I think that's a good perspective to hear because as an Orcs player, like anything that is like fall back and shoot, fall back and charge, typically I don't plan on being able to use it. So, um, in oh my goodness, in Warhorde we have a thing where we can fall back and charge an enhancement, but it's like one of our worst enhancements because you never expect to survive a charge as an orc.
Yeah, that's fair.
So this is probably where I would put this as like the third or fourth best enhancement. It's really close with Dagob shot Thunderbus. It's I don't know. It's like if you do get charged by something and you need to fall back and charge, like the fact that anything survived the charge in the first place means you got charged by a very weak unit. So it's very situational. It could come up in a game and it could be useful, but is it worth spending points on an enhancement for? I probably not, but
Do you have
it could come
any?
up.
Do you have any large toughness units? Like I know like Maganobs are a thing, but like are there other like I'm thinking more like dread mob type of units, things that are bigger, stronger, they want to shoot, like Killicans want to shoot a lot because they have those rockets or whatever. Is there anything like that I'm not aware of, I guess, that you can put a leader on, you can equip this and let them be able to fall back and shoot?
I mean, our most defensive unit that I can think of would be like the big mech in Mega Armor or whatever it's called. That would
And what can he lead?
he would lead the Mega Knobs.
So like
So
can the Meganobs have a decent shooting weapon?
not really. That's the problem.
Yeah. Um, I feel like if this was I feel like if this was a fallback, shoot, and charge, it would be incredible. But if
Mm-hmm.
if it's a fallback and shoot, it's I feel like there's not like I guess to your point, I can understand where you're like, I don't think we're ever going to survive a charge, which makes it hard to rationalize taking something that expects you to survive a charge and be able to fall back and shoot and not charge. Like
Mm-hmm.
you need to be able to try to kill a unit by just falling back and shooting. I can understand not wanting to take that. So yeah, I
Yeah.
hear that.
Like with our most defensive orcs, your shooting profiles are almost exactly the same as far as like strength, AP, and damage goes. Where you're looking at, I think it's strength 4, AP 0, damage 1. But the combi shooter is gonna get, I think, 4 shots, and the I forget what the other one is, combi something, or I don't know.
Do
It's
any of
it's one
your
shot though, so you want the one that has 4 shots, so you can get those sustains.
do any of your leaders grant you fallback and charge? Like lieutenants in Space Marines, lieutenants
Mm,
give fallback and charge. You can fallback, shoot, and charge.
no.
Can you do? Oh, okay, all right. Because if you could give it to something like that, where you still have the fallback and charge, being able to fall back, shoot, and charge, this might make sense for that unit. But yeah, if you don't have access to that, then it feels less good.
Yeah, this is something, if you got points, if only if you have points to spend, you could use it. But if you have if you have that many points to spend that you got targeting squigs probably at this point, and you're like, I'll get Zogoth and eat Dakka, you could probably start considering taking, a unit of Gretchen instead, which would be great for this detachment.
This feels maybe it's a hot take, but this feels like a an enhancement that you take and you only use if you're losing. Meaning the unit that wants to fall back and shoot is a unit that you don't even want in melee anyways, and you probably have a different unit that got in melee and died. Like if you put it on like something that like the shootas, right? Like or the sorry, the ludas. If you have the ludas and they want to fall back and shoot,
Mm-hmm.
well, what died so that they could get in melee? Like you probably had boys that were ahead of them or knobs or something right ahead of them that like was trying to get in melee and they're going to be sitting on an objective and then your loot is getting melee and you're already in a bad situation. This
Well,
feels like planning for a bad situation.
yeah, if this comes up in a game where you built a list where you took this enhancement after you had access to the other enhancements and you purposefully built a list around it, your opponent's going to think you're Napoleon because you're such a brilliant commander. They're going to be like, "Oh my
I
god,
don't
like he was 20 steps ahead of me. How did he see that coming?" Because
know.
it's so rarely going to come up that it's really not that good of an enhancement.
Yeah, if you want to make your opponent think that you're playing chess while they're playing checkers, take that enhancement. Otherwise, I think there's better options.
Yeah, if you know absolutely nothing, take this enhancement, and your opponent will sweat bullets. He'll be like, "What do they know that I don't know?"
So let's move on to the stratagems. So there's 6 new stratagems provided by this detachment, and let's start talking about those. You want to walk us through those?
Yeah, I think this is one of the areas where this detachment shines. So there's 6 new stratagems for this detachment. The first one we got is called Orks is Still Orks, which I like the name of this stratagem. It is in the fight phase. You select one Orcs unit from your army that has not been selected to fight this phase. And then until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack that targets an enemy unit, reroll a wound roll of 1. That enemy unit, or if that enemy unit is within range of an objective marker, you can reroll the wound roll.
You know what this is incredible on that I immediately thought of when I read this,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't really fit the theme of this list necessarily. It's beast. It's the beast boss with the beast snagga boys.
Yeah,
This
absolutely.
annihilates stuff because of the reroll to wound or
Uh
reroll
huh.
ones to wound. It's incredible. It's so strong with the dev wounds.
Yep.
This is oh my god. Like if you take a one of Beast Boss with Beast Boys, and then you plan on using this whenever they get in melee with some like a strong tank or a monster or something that's really strong, that you're like, yeah, we have anti monster, anti vehicle 4 up with like the Beast Boss. I think the Beast Boss has that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you use this stratagem on that, you're going to be doing so much damage in dev wounds. It's crazy. I think this feels like the stratagem that you target your one big melee threat with, and you say,
Mm-hmm.
go forward this big melee threat and annihilate something. And it's awesome. This is such a good strat.
Yeah, yeah. This is like it's really good with Beast Boys because I think they kind of get it implicitly on vehicles, but like anything that's gonna deal devastating wounds, um, and you get that reroll on the wound roll, it's so good because you're just gonna reroll the wound roll and try to get those dev wounds. Um, yeah,
Arguably, combos with that enhancement that gives dev wounds if you have enough shots to make it worth it. But yeah, anything that gives dev wounds, it's so strong.
there are I'll say there are better stratagems in Warhorde for melee stuff.
Hmm.
Like Unbridled Carnage can't be beat. It's so stinking good. And then the Big Hunt has one named something different that does exactly the same thing where you get a 5 up crit on your wound roll. It's so good. It's so
Yeah.
stinking good with Beast Boys. You can't beat that. But this adds some parity to this detachment where it appears to be just a full Dakka attachment. It's not. You can do. You're gonna have melee in this detachment too, because don't forget on your WA you have assault and you have advance and charge, and that's going to be really important with this detachment. Your go turn, you need to do work. If you don't do work with this detachment, you're not gonna have a good game, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think it's a solid detachment, and just having a rule that benefits you in melee is a plus.
As somebody who runs a bunch of assault intercessors who basically have this rule built into them, you the value that you get out of assault intercessors re-rolling wound rolls of one, or if you're within range of an objective marker, you re-roll the whole wound roll. The value that you get out of that is so good, and being able to flex that to any unit is so
Mm,
strong. I mean, this could be a Gorkanaut, right? Like it's an Orks unit. It's not just an infantry, right? It
yeah.
could be anything like that. It's so strong. It. This is well, I haven't really seen all the stratagems. This is like one of the top ones already for me.
Yep. So let's get into the next one, which is I love the name of this one too. Maybe the best stratagem name in all of Orcs Codex. Long, uncontrolled bursts. So at the start of your shooting phase, you select one Orcs character model from your army, and then the effect is to select one enemy unit within 18 inches of your Orcs character model. Until the end of the phase, weapons equipped by Orcs models from your army have the Ignores Cover ability while targeting that unit.
Pretty strong. I think this is pretty good. It's
I want to say keep this in the back of your head. This is good. Like on a standalone, you read
yeah,
this, you go, that's good. I can remove cover from
fine.
something.
Right. Covers everywhere in 10th. It's fine.
Keep in mind also that most of the Orcs Codex at best is going to be AP -1.
Yeah. Yeah. So you eliminate that, ignoring that AP -1 because of cover, right? You get cover, you remove that AP -1.
Yep.
Uh yeah, it's good. It's I still think the first one's better, but yeah, it's pretty good.
But just imagine you're going against like a Custodes unit, for instance, that
Right.
has high armor save,
Saving on
and
twos.
the entire shooting phase, you're gonna ignore cover on that unit for all orc units. You're just going to rinse that unit. You're going to say,
Oh,
you got no cover.
so okay. I misunderstood. You select one enemy unit, and that has ignores cover for all of your army.
That's why it's
That
like a great name. Long, uncontrolled
yes,
bursts. Your entire army is just like, screw this unit. We're killing it.
yeah, that makes it feel. It's almost like Oath for you,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It obviously no reroll, but like it's kind of like a mini Oath. That's pretty good.
Yeah. I like it. It's a cool name. So let's move on. Hopefully I got the next stratagem in this one.
You're good.
Yes. So I'm going to skip the one on the left. I'm going to go to the one on the right.
All
So
right.
let's talk about special shells. When your shooting phase, you target one Orks unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot this phase. The effect until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes a ranged attack that targets the closest eligible target within 18 inches, improve the armor pen by 1 for
Yeah,
the
I
unit.
can see. I can see how this combos with the other one.
Yeah. So this is a thing where you're gonna want to have 2 CP available when you get to your shooting phase, where you're going to be able to first apply, I'm going to ignore cover to this unit for the rest of my shooting phase, and then this unit who hits extra hard in shooting, they get an armor pen +1.
And if you start to consider the enhancements that you give to those units that are shooting, whether it's the rapid fire enhancement or it's the +1 to hit enhancement, those those shooting units with some stratagem synergy and enhancement synergy are now posing a serious threat, like plasma gun level threat for the entire unit.
Exactly. But I think with this, you're starting to see maybe a weakness of this detachment. You need
Right.
CP to be able to do this.
Yeah, that's a very good that's a very good strat. That's a extremely good strat.
Yeah, it's good, but you need to have CP available. And that's
Hmm.
like sometimes when you get to your go turn, you might not have that CP available if you're kind of on the back foot. Hopefully you're not at that point as an Orcs player at when you get to your go turn, because um you should be leading in front, I guess, at the beginning of the game.
Right. So what's this other strat that we have?
Okay, so like I feel bad skipping this one because this might be the best strat in all of the Orcs Codex. Like it's so good, and I think people are going to be building. There are almost non-negotiables that you're going to have in your lists because of this stratagem is so good. So this is an epic deed stratagem called "Get Stuck In, Lads," and it's so awesome. So when your command phase, you select one Orcs unit from your army, and the effect is until the start of your next command phase, the WA is active for your unit, even if you have already declared the WA this battle. So
Yeah,
basically,
that's
there,
insane.
yeah, there are special. We'll get into it later, but there are special or special rules that apply to specific units on the WA turn that give them special rules, and you can choose to have the WA applied to that unit. Think Gaz, like that's the low hanging fruit right there. Having lethal
Crazy strong.
hits because of Makari's banner every turn if you want it. It's so good.
Yeah, this is insane. This is so freaking good. Like the other ones are good, right? The other ones are like, yeah, I can see a use for that. This one is like, I need to have a CP ready to use every single turn for this.
Yeah, and that's again, we're getting to the weakness of this detachment. I'm gonna want a CP for Get Stuck In, Lads. I'm gonna want a CP
Every turn.
for long uncontrolled bursts, so I can ignore cover from a unit every turn. I'm
Right.
gonna want another CP so I can use special shells on another
Right.
unit every turn. This is a CP heavy detachment. That's not great. Um, we have things to mitigate that, but not as well as other factions do.
Yeah,
Um,
so before we get into kind of the pros and cons, why don't we wrap up the last two stratagems?
yeah. So these ones aren't quite as exciting. I think we've hit on most of the coolest ones of this detachment. So we have huge show offs. Your command phase, one Orc Walkers unit from your army, and until the start of your next command phase, improve your unit's move, leadership, and objective control characteristic by one. And each time a model in your unit makes an attack, add one to the hit roll. This excludes killicans, though, which would be
Y-
awesome.
It
Um,
feels bad that it excludes killicans. I feel like this is good if it was for killicans. Like I feel like this would be, you're like, yeah, I want to use this for my killicans, but then it says, no, you can't. And it's like, I don't
it's
know. Like,
it makes sense. It makes it a very situational stratagem where you're gonna probably try to use this for certain situations where you have, let's say, a small OC unit sitting on an objective and you need one more OC on one of your walkers, whether it's a knot or a dread. You're like, I need one more OC on this and I can swing the objective in my favor. That's when you're going to use it. So it's going to be very situational. You're not really using it, I don't think, for the offensive potential. You're using this when you use this, it's going to be very important. Um,
see, I had the opposite reaction to this. I actually think you use it for the move and the offensive capabilities, and you don't give a crap about the leadership and objective control characteristics.
I think it's
Like,
both because the move is equally important for walkers because our walkers are slow.
right.
The move is
I,
very important, but the objective control, I think it's sort of like there's a tactical brigade objective that does the same thing where you boost your OC, where you can flip an objective, and I see it sort of being something like that where you can move on an objective, flip it into your control, and just kind of like disrupt the board state and be like, you plan on having this objective, but my walker, who has very low OC, took it from you.
I can see this being incredible on a Death Dread or something like that, where um you increase its move and its add one to the hit roll, and
Mm-hmm.
in your Wa turn, because you can advance and charge, you're able to advance your Death Dread up and then charge it in and have more offensive capabilities with it. I feel like for me, that's where my mind went. Is you have this ability to make one of your walkers hit extra hard on whatever turn that you need it to, whether you drop it in from reserves, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe you need to run it in from that 9 inches to make sure it completes that charge. You give it that extra inch because your walkers are pretty slow. You give
Yeah.
it that extra inch, you are able to hit harder in whatever attacks it makes. I feel like it's good, right? It's good. It's not game breaking or anything like that, but it seems like if you plan your list around having maybe that one walker unit that's able to utilize that, it could be pretty damn good for whatever unit that you plan for it.
Yeah. I mean, it could be used in that situation, but you're more likely going to want to save your command points for special shells and
Right.
long and uncontrolled bursts. So that's where you're going to do the most work in your Wa turn.
Right.
So this is going to be at least fourth on your list of stratagems that you're going to look at using. Um, it's going to be very situational, and you might have a moment when you've played maybe your third or fourth game, and this will come up, and you'll be like, "Oh my god, I can use huge show offs right now." to like swing this objective. I'm going to use it.
This might clutch my game right here if you have
Yeah,
like it might
this
be one of those situations.
it has huge clutch potential. So keep it in your back pocket. I don't think it's your most important stratagem, but it is a cool stratagem to have in your back pocket.
So what's our last stratagem?
So the last one is called Call Dat Dakka. Your opponent's these are great names. Your opponent's
There.
shooting phase just after an enemy unit has shot. One Orks unit from your army. The target is one Orks unit from your army that had one or more of its models destroyed as a result of the attacking unit's attacks. The effect is your unit can shoot as if it were your shooting phase, but must target only that enemy unit when doing so, and can only do so if that enemy unit is an eligible target.
Situationally very good.
Yeah, situational good. It's like the Orks is never beaten, but way worse. But just because it's like Orc shooting, you're not. Again, this is your opponent's shooting phase. You do not get your sustained 2 at this point.
Wait, really?
Yeah, so if we go.
Oh, in your shooting phase. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, so if you have like a full. Say you have a full powered unit that's about to get wiped. Sure, I can get one shot off with it and not feel so bad. It's another situational thing, and when you use it, it's not going to be that good either. It's going to be better than Overwatch.
Yeah, I was about to say this is better Overwatch. This is
Exactly.
it's but the bad thing about it is that you're relying on your unit that gets shot to not die or not have too much of its models die to where your shoot back is ineffective. Like you
Mhm.
need it to be decent on the shoot back. Like if you have a squad of Ludas and you take them in 6, right?
Yeah.
So if you take them in 6 and you lose 4 of them and you
Well,
shoot back, there's
five,
no
five.
fucking there's no point. Like there's literally no point in shooting back with like if you lose too many, right?
Yeah, and that is a really good point. Most of the time when you're getting shot by something, you know, most other detachments or factions are punching up. They're gonna hit us pretty hard. We're gonna lose a lot of models, and when we shoot back, it's gonna be really weak.
Yeah, this one feels almost like a gotcha, where
Mm-hmm.
if somebody does shoot your Ludas and you don't lose more than like you lose one model and you have the rest of your unit alive, you're like, haha, I can shoot you back and actually shoot you pretty decently. But without your detachment rule, it feels a little bad.
Yeah, and it's gonna be very situational. So like you said, if you had like Ludas that survived some assault and they're standing on an objective and you're going to shoot back at them, so you're going to get the re-rolls. You get say you're within 9 inches, so you get sustained. You're going to hit them hard regardless of not having, sorry, you're going to have rapid fire, not sustained. um you're going to hit them pretty hard, but you're not going to hit them as hard as if you had sustained. It can be good. It's better than Overwatch.
Right.
um it's not that good though. Like I would probably never use this, and I'll save my command points to use on the other stratagems because the other stratagems are that much better.
This is the weakest strat, probably.
It's a poor excuse of a defense strat, I think.
Yeah.
It's defense by offense, but it's really crappy offense.
Yeah, I agree. So we've kind of gone through the strats. How about we talk about the pros and cons after talking through the detachment rule enhancements and strats?
Yeah, so I feel like as we've gone through the strats and the enhancements, we've touched on a lot of these. So let's go through the pros first. So I think I'm a casual player. So as a pro, this is a new way to play orcs. If it's not the best way to play orcs, fine. I don't care. I got a new way to play orcs. The one thing I really like about this detachment is the detachment rule applies to orc infantry and walkers units, which is a very broad keyword. The one thing I didn't like about our codex detachments is they were very specific to the units it applied to. So if you didn't already own those units as a new player, it was a bit of a crutch. Um, but now we have a very generic detachment. It feels like the shooting detachment that is it's on the other side of the coin from Warhorde, where I can kind of play whatever I want and be good at shooting. We got a new way to play orcs. That's a pro.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a strong detachment rule as you have here. The sustained hits too is crazy. It
Mm-hmm.
could pop off. It feels very orky, from like a theme, or even if you talk about game design or whatever. But like, um, they can spike super hard with sustained hits too. If you roll a bunch of sixes, you're going to hit insanely hard in shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot harder than what you would expect from orcs,
Yep.
which I think is very on brand, right? They have this luck factor with orcs, and I think it's cool and it's very strong.
Yep. So the third one, pro, is really good stratagems. So we got the two shooting stratagems that we're probably going to use in combo all the time, which is the special shells in combination with the I'm drawing a blank right now. I just had it just a
With
minute ago.
special shells and long uncontrolled bursts.
Yes, exactly. And then we also have the get stuck in lads, which might be one of the best stratagems in our entire codex, where we can apply the wah anytime we want it, every single turn if we want it. It's so good. So we got really good stratagems. As we talked about, there's some stratagems that aren't so good. Every detachment has those. They're usually very situational, but the stratagems that are good in this detachment are really good.
Yeah, I'd say 4 out of 5, 4 out of 6, maybe 5 out of 6 are good strats, which is it's more good strats than maybe some other detachments in the game, right? I think this is actually one of the like of a set of strats. This is one of the best.
Mm-hmm. And then the last two, to just touch through them really quickly. I feel like the detachment is flexible, as we've already talked about. We can use orc infantry and walkers units. It's more open to different unit types. Walkers, I like my walkers units, and the fact that it applies to all my walkers is a pro. I'm really happy about this detachment. Cons. So one of the cons is I feel like this might be replacing Dread Mob, which makes me slightly sad, because I think a few episodes ago I was talking about getting into Dread Mob, and I really like it. And one of the things we always did in Dread Mob, at least what I did, is I didn't roll for my detachment rule. I just took sustained hits a lot of the times and accepted the hazardous.
Yeah,
So now I can get sustained hits too, and I don't have to roll for it and get hazardous.
yeah. I feel like one of the things that you might want to look at when comparing these two, and we encourage you guys to as well, but check out the strats that you have available in Dreadmob versus this one and see if they
Mm-hmm.
fit your list better, right? Like there might be something in the Dreadmob strats that fits more of the dreads and walkers and stuff like that more than this one. Like, one of the pros is that it's flexible. This is very flexible to generic orc units, whereas Dreadmob is very heavy on the dreads and definitely has strats that more target dreads. But
Yeah,
yeah,
Dread Mob
you'll need to.
is going to become the mech detachment. So like, if there's a lot of special rules that apply only to mech units, so if you have a lot of mechs and stuff, you might look at Dread Mob still. But this detachment, if you're doing heavy walkers, I just think this detachment's going to be so much better to get sustained
It's
hits
pretty good.
too. Yeah.
It lets you be very flexible for your matchup. It's not as like, I can understand where you'd want a bunch of lethal hits, like if you were fighting a bunch of, either it's a bunch of tanks or it's a bunch of monsters, or greater demons, like you need a bunch of lethal hits to get damage through. That might be clutch for you, but
Mm.
to your point, you're probably looking at sustained hits more often than not when you're shooting, because I don't know if you're shooting at tanks much ever until you're in melee, and then you're like, well, maybe I need that lethal hits, or maybe I need sustained hits here. Like it's in one vein you have it without having the hazardous rule where you have sustained hits 2 in shooting, and then you have a dread mob where you have kind of access to either lethal or sustained hits 1, but you have the risk of doing damage to yourself, and there's some flexibility there, one way or the other, but I don't know. It's hard to say which one's best.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this orc detachment is gonna hit hard with the Dakka, so it's gonna hit you hard shooting. You're gonna be like, orc are playing like Tau, like what's going on
Orcs
right
shoot
here?
what?
Yeah, so it's gonna be really confusing. But if you're going against it, but don't forget the one stratagem, which is orcs is still orcs, and it's true. Orcs is still orcs. They're gonna get in your face and they're gonna crump you. So
Right.
you always have to look out for that because we still have our tools like the beast snagaboys that can get in your face and hurt you, especially your big vehicles. So we still have those tools at our disposal to use in this detachment, which is good. But yeah, touching on this con, I feel like it's going to replace Dread Mob. Unless you're really big into mechs and stuff, then maybe you're going to look at mechs. And honestly, I'll probably still play Dread Mob sometimes for fun in casual because it's just a fun detachment, like
Push
ruling.
the button.
Yeah, push the button, see what you're going to get. It's fun. Um,
But with all of the cool tools that this provides you, it is extremely CP intensive, which is our next point.
yeah, so we got tools to mitigate this, luckily, but I feel like you're going to want at least 2 to 3, probably 3 CP available at any one time that you're going to need it. If you're playing doubles, your partner's going to hate you unless they don't really care about command points.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true.
Yeah, so like you're gonna want a CP every single turn, so you can use the whatever the thing is called, get stuck in or whatever that applies the wah every turn. You're gonna want to have a CP available so you can use that. Um, it's a really good rule. I don't know. This feels like a con to me. It kind of gives you non-negotiables where you almost feel inclined to take certain units because their WA rules are so good
Right.
that you're like, I want to be able to apply this every turn. Yeah. For me,
It
it
might be a positive
feels
though.
it's positive. It's like it takes some of the decision making out of list building. It's also a con where you kind of like you lose maybe some of your freedom of list building where you're like, I want to try like my own thing. That's where like tactical brigade is really cool where you can kind of do your own thing. But this is going to heavily incentivize specific units who have really good WA rules, and you're going to need a CP available so you can make that WA rule available every single turn.
And the last con that we have there is that the detachment rule doesn't apply to firing deck.
Yeah, do not forget this. So like you could go, oh, I'm going to have a brick of 10 flash gets riding around in a truck and just blasting things off the board. Sorry, it does not apply to firing deck. So, unfortunately, since it only applies to orc infantry and walker units, your firing deck that you get on a truck does not work here because the truck does not get the rule of the orc infantry unit that is embarked upon it.
Right. When you're firing from the firing deck, it is effectively that the truck is firing in this case, and the truck, since it's not infantry or walker, doesn't get the rule.
Mm-hmm. So this is like a little bit of a feels bad. Orcs need trucks. They need dedicated transports or any sort of transport vehicles to add to their survivability. So you're going to be taking these trucks probably anyways. It feels bad that you don't gain from the detachment rule, which really is going to incentivize our go turn. You're going to need to do work on your go turn, because after your go turn, you're going to die and you're going to lose board presence, and
Yeah.
that's when you want to make sure that you're ahead of your opponent, you know, around turn 3, that they cannot catch up for the rest of the game.
Right. Well, we've talked about the pros and cons, and we've kind of gone through all the different rules and everything. How about we talk about some lists that we have?
Yep. So I've put together 2 example lists. Before I put them on the screen and before anybody comments in the comments below, I want to preface this by saying I put together 1,500 point lists because we play 1,500 points. This is kind of our butter zone that we like to play in, that makes it a quick game, but we can also take what we want. So it's not a full 2,000 point list. Take from this what you will, and this is a list based on what I have available to myself to play with. So this, I'm not a competitive player. I don't play in tournaments or anything like this. This is probably something that if you're not a competitive player, you might be able to apply to yourself and get some ideas from, of like, what do I have available? What can I play with? And how can I use this detachment now to have fun?
And if you want to listen to our reasons of why we play 1500 point games in general, listen to our episode about the best point value to play 40K, and you can hear some of our reasonings of why we play 1500 point games.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the first example list I call my big and stompy list. It's 1,475 points. I got Zodgrod, Beast Boss, Big Mech with Shock Attack Gun, Mech, War Boss, 10 Beast Snagaboys, 5 Flash Kits, 11 of the Gretchen. One of them is going to be led by Zodgrod. Another 11, which is going to be farming CP. So, like we said, this is a CP intensive detachment. We want Gretchen in this detachment to farm CP.
You have multiple chances to trigger their CP generation rule.
Yep. If Zodgrod's on a objective and he triggers this, that's great. But if he's not, he might have more important things to do. So you're taking Zodgrod in this list because of his WA rule. So let me get through the rest of the list real quick. So you got 10 Ludas. They're going to be led by the Big Mac with the shock attack gun, because they're going to be doing work. This is going to be a Luda's heavy detachment. If you have more Ludas than me, which I don't have a lot of, and you have more Big Mech with shock attack gun, I encourage you to take more. So this is what I'm taking. I'm going to take 5 knobs. They're going to be led by my war boss. So if you can see, I'm doing kind of a war boss leading knobs with flash kits. These guys are going to go in a truck together, and they're going to be a SWAT team. Then what makes the big and stompy list? We got the Gorkanaut, which he's got his twin big shooter, which in rapid fire range is throwing out like 30 shots, which is amazing in this detachment.
And with sustained hits too, yeah.
Yeah. And then cans. I got 2 units of 3 cans. I don't really recommend taking 6 cans because they do have a very large base. They're kind of slow moving. Even with advance and shoot, they're kind of unwieldy. I wouldn't want to take 6. So I would recommend taking the MSU, like the minimum sized unit for kilocans. Take 3. They're going to be easier to maneuver. My kilocans, I'm going to take rockets on them because you want that AP and damage. Like 3 kilocans with rockets, they're going to do work too in this detachment. They're going to be great.
In particular, into things like Space Marines, it's going to wreck. The kilocans are going to be your elite killers.
Yep. And then I got 2 dedicated transports with the trucks. You're going to need trucks regardless with orcs. One thing you were talking about earlier, Brooke, was taking the Beast Snagaboys. Like, this list is going to have a Beast Boss with Beast Snagaboys. If you have this unit if you already own it in your collection, it's such a good utility to have available. I
Yeah.
I recommend taking it. It's so good. And we have other stuff that might be better now available, but I don't own that stuff. So like we got the tank bustas and we got the oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank right now.
I can't think of the Breaker Boys.
Breaka Boys, yes. So
If you had them, what would you swap out
um
if you did have them?
if I had so like if I had tank bustas, I'd be trying to fit them in my list somehow.
Would
So
you
you're
consider
looking at
taking out like maybe Killicans, or I don't know, like is there something that you like see in your list that you're like, man, if I had Tank Busters or if I had
I take
Breaka
my
Boys?
I would take my knobs led by my war boss out, and I would put my tank busters in and probably try to fit something else in, like maybe another unit of Gretchen.
Yeah, that makes sense. Farm for more CP.
Yeah, this is such a CP intensive list that you cannot have enough Gretchen. Like you almost want to maximize your total Gretchen that you can have. But the tank busters, you can get 5 infantry that have rockets. It's
Yeah.
really good. So you're looking
Yeah.
at like D3 attacks, AP -3. I think like D3 damage. It's really good. Strength 9, I think.
Arguably they fit the list maybe a little bit better, but obviously you're going off of what you own and what you would run personally. They
Yeah.
arguably fit the list better just because of the sustained hits too, but you know, the knobs fit a similar role. They're going to be able to, in melee at least, go and kind of handle as a SWAT team one particular threat the same way that like a tank busters or breaker boys would.
hmm and the mechs in this list, they're gonna do work. They have really good range, and when you call the WA turn and they get into melee, if they get into melee, they're gonna do work too. So like one of the things that would kind of come up in Dread Mob or Warhorde or whatever, if you're running like a mech because they're so slow, you'd be advancing to get them stuck in, and on their advance turn they can't shoot. Now you have the advance, and you have assault and advance and charge, which is so good. You're just doubling your damage not doubling, but you're increasing your damage potential, which makes this detachment really good.
Yeah, I think this list I like this list because it feels very flexible. You have a lot of different threats. Like your Beast Boss and Beast Snagga Boys are their own little threat, and then you have obviously your SWAT team truck, which is the flash gets and knobs all in a truck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have a Gorkanaut, right, to shove in your opponent's face and say, deal with this. And then you have Killicans that can kind of go off and almost SWAT team without a truck on
Mm-hmm.
their own. And, you know, it feels very flexible. I think this is a cool list.
Yeah, the Gorkanaut makes up for some of the defensive shortcomings of your list because you're going to have a very strong presence on the board. Don't go into a game thinking you won't lose it, because you can. Um, and you have trucks. You're going to need the trucks to move things up the board and keep them alive. So don't think you can't ever not use trucks as orcs. I think it's super integral to our list building.
Yeah. I think Zodgrod is the low key
Yeah, I
star of
I
the
haven't
list.
even talked about him. Let's talk about him real quick. So Zodgrad's WA rule is just gonna be like, people are calling him Godgrad because he's gonna be so good in this detachment, because his WA rule adds 6 inches to the movement characteristic of his unit during the WA turn. So he becomes a
Oh wait, but you can only have the wall in one turn. Oh
you
wait,
can have
you
it
have a
in
strat.
every turn.
It's crazy.
So he becomes, if you can keep him alive, he becomes a really, really amazing utility unit where at any point in time you're like, you get what is the one called where you got to get to all the secondary, where you need to get to all the corners.
Uh, oh man, I'm horrible at remembering these names. I know there's like, oh man, um,
Well, whatever it's
I'm
called.
completely blanking on them. I'll look them up while you're talking.
But if you need to get to like a board corner and you're just like, oh, nobody's going to be able to get here. Oh, I got Zodgrod. He can move 12 inches plus an advance. So like an average of 15 inches on a turn. It's it's amazing. So like having that sort of utility at your disposal of being able to move a unit 15 inches across the board on the Wa turn, but you also gain all the benefits of the Wa, where you get your advance and charge and your assault all in the Wa turn for that unit is going to be amazing. And with Zodgrad, you benefit from all of the existing in this list. You benefit from all the existing shenanigans that you can pull. Where you can put Zodgrad in a truck at the beginning of the game, scout him out 9 inches, and this guy's going to be able to just like take off across the board and get right in your opponent's face if you want to use him that way, or use him a little bit more strategically. He's a very good utility unit.
The secondary that you were thinking of is containment, where you need to get within 9 inches of the battlefield edges that are not
Yeah.
within your deployment zone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the one. Like, you can run so far with Zodgrad on the Wa turn, and when you give him the Wa with your strat, that you can basically accomplish some of these objectives so easily.
Mm-hmm.
It's so strong.
Like people might say you don't want to be using Zygrad's unit to achieve that secondary, but the fact that on the next turn you can also move maybe another 15 inches again, I think kind of invalidates that.
Yeah,
He's
you can
just
use
such a
him as
powerful unit.
he the utility that you get out of that unit is so strong that you could use him for one turn to do an objective, and on the very next turn you can move him 15 inches and get wherever he needs to on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm. And if you've never played with Zodgrad before and you look at him and you're like, he leads Gretchen, like he doesn't seem that good. Just kind of like read over his rule. He makes the Gretchen super runs, and they are just so much more survivable. Read over his rules and do some theory crafting, and you're just going to be like, oh, yeah, this is really good. And not just the survivability factor of everything, but he also is going to make you hit harder too, because he's going to grant +1 to the hit roll and +1 to the wound roll for everything. It's so good.
Yeah, and then you combo that with Orcs is still Orcs, special shells, long uncontrolled bursts. It's very strong. He can turn a Gretchen unit that's otherwise unthreatening into kind of a serious threat.
Yeah, like it's like a really crappy version of like Angron. We
He's
could
just
just move
it
all the way across the board and just like get in your face. Or maybe I'm
it's
thinking
just
of the Thousand Suns guy,
it's
Magnus.
just like it's an extremely annoying unit that your opponent has to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do we want to talk about the second list that you have?
Yeah, so my second list is it's kind of going off of the whole stratagem of applying the Wa on any turn. So I think Gaz is going to be really good in this detachment. So you can
Just
apply the Wa to Gaz every turn. So you can get lethal hits in melee with Makari's banner every turn.
does it say 2 times Gazgul because it's Gazgul plus Makari?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I was like, wait a second. All right, anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, but it's a little less good because it only applies to melee. It gives you lethal hits in melee with a 6-inch aura or whatever from Makari, but it's still really good that you can apply that every turn. But just saying that, that's why I put Zodgrad in this list too, because now you have two units who have really good Wa turns and you can kind of choose who to apply it to when you need it.
Right.
The rest of this list doesn't change a whole lot. I ended up taking off the enhancement of the Big Mac with shock attack gun. The last list, if I go back to it real quick, he had the targeting thing. In this one, I took it off of him because I could fit in both units. I can do this if you want to, can fit an extra unit of Gretchen in it. And I think that's just as useful as putting the targeted thing on it, which gives them a +4 to their hit roll. Just to get the
Or
extra
a
CP.
4 up on the hit roll, you mean?
Yeah, so 4 up on their hit roll.
Yeah, I feel like this list, I feel like this list is still pretty solid. Is in this second list, does it make sense that you could potentially, and obviously you have to build your list this way, so you wouldn't be able to just like make a decision at the table, but I feel like in this list, it might actually be good. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm thinking wrong about this, but I feel like you could take one of those Gretchen units and combine it with another, have a 22-man Gretchen with Zodgrod leading it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not worried about farming for CP, that is.
Yeah, that's the main reason I have it this way, and the other reason I have it as a 11-man unit is that Zodgrod can be at the beginning of the game. You can embark him within the truck.
Oh, yeah, that seems maybe the best reason because then the truck can scout because it's a dedicated transport. And like you can have them scout out, they can get out, they can run really freaking far, and then you can have something like your knobs or flash kits or whatever you need to jump into the truck, and then they can move up the battlefield.
Yeah, so like if you're looking at my previous list, the Big and Stompy list, if you have only 2 units of Gretchen, you you really got to run them as MSUs. You can't combine these together. So if you only own 22 Gretchen or whatever, um I wouldn't put them together because you well one you're really tilting your hand to your opponent where you're just I'm not putting them in the truck.
Right.
Um, so if you like
This gives you flexibility.
yeah. So, at the beginning of the game, you could have him embarked in the truck scouts up, they disembark, then your SWAT team gets in the truck, or your beast snagaboys get in the truck, and they just start taking off to another part of the board. This makes your list a lot more flexible. If you're running this list where you got the 3 units of Gretchen, yeah, I think I don't see any problem with running one of them as the 22 man with Zodgrad. You're tilting your hand a little bit more, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like as big of a deal.
You make Zodgrad's unit a little bit more survivable and let him use his Wa ability when you do the get stuck in lads, which
Mm-hmm,
you're pretty much primarily targeting his unit with.
mm-hmm.
You can keep him survivable with a 22-man Gretchen.
And here's the other thing: is in a lot of lists that I run with Gaz, like in Warhorde, for instance, I want to be able to fit a battle wagon in my list, so Zodgrad, Gaz, sorry, can ride in the battle wagon. In this list, or in this detachment, I should say, the fact that you can give him the Wa on every turn, there's no reason why you shouldn't advance him every turn. And you
True.
don't have to worry about advancing him and still getting his full potential because like Gaz can do work in shooting too. He's shooting a gun that has 12 attack, a rapid fire 4. I'm not sure what the range is on it. It's not like hitting that hard, but he can do work. And the fact that you would be able to give him the Watt rule every turn and he has advance, shoot, and charge every turn is really good.
Yeah, there's no reason why he couldn't just foot slog it up. This since he is able to advance pretty much every turn with the ability to potentially give him the Wa ability so he can advance and charge. Um, It's quite good. I feel like one of the things that I like to implement in my lists is the like first wave, second wave,
Hmm.
and I feel like if you have gas as almost like a second wave component in your list, like you could rush up like your truck and your Gretchen with Zodgrod and stuff like that. You can rush them up and get them in your opponent's face. And in the meantime, Gaz is kind of foot slogging it up, getting into position, waiting for like that turn 3, turn 4 advanced charge that he needs to get, right? And you can
Hmm.
give him that wah ability at any time. You're not limited to, I need everything in position and then I'm going to activate my wah so that everything can advance and everything can charge. You have flexibility to take his unit and specifically, maybe Zodgrod dies in the early game and now Gaz is moving up the field, and you give him the wah ability, and he can charge often in advance, and
Hmm.
it kind of gives you that first wave, second wave that I quite like to implement.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem you're going to find with this list is you don't have enough transports, it feels like. So you're going to have difficult decisions to make where you're probably going to want you're going to want the beast boss and the beast snagga boys in a transport just because you want to get them right in your opponent's face. But then with your other truck, you have the decision of I got Zagrad and the Gretchen. They're probably not going to stay in for long. I have a SWAT team I could put in the truck. Um, but now I'm kind of leaving my big mech with the shock attack gun and the 10 ludas may possibly out to dry. Um, and this is a unit that you're going to want to do work in this detachment. So um, maybe this is a unit you want in the truck, but then, having a unit in the truck again, you're not benefiting from the detachment because the transports aren't going to get the detachment rule.
Right. Well, in any final thoughts on the two lists that you provided?
Yeah, so I mean, these are lists that I'm thinking of running with my current collection in the future. I These are not tournament optimal lists. There are better things you can do. Go check out some of like the competitive YouTube channels for orcs, like Happy Crump and Wargaming, for instance. He's got a great breakdown of how he would run orcs. I unfortunately don't have like a disposable income where I can spend $350 buying tank bustas to put 3 units of them in my list, but if I did, that would be really cool.
Right. Yeah. Feel free to experiment. This is just what Drew has put together for his lists and what he has
Mhm.
available to him. And maybe you can take some ideas from this and use your collection and come up with something on your own that, maybe you're inspired by some of the ideas that we've presented here.
Yeah, that's the main thing I want to do. I really want to inspire people to take what you have in your own collection, and sometimes it can be daunting when a new detachment comes out and you go like, I can't use this. I got to buy all this stuff to use it. We just got a new detachment that I feel is like really flexible. It applies to orc infantry and orc walker units. I think most of us own orc infantry units. If you don't own any of our good shooting units, like that sucks. But I think a lot of people are going to own like Ludas or Flash Gits or something. They'll be able to do something in this detachment. So think about what you own, think about what synergies you have with what you own, and make a list and try it out. And that's the most important thing. We got a new way to play, and I we got a new fun way to play the game, which is the most important thing.
Definitely. And, if you guys appreciated our thoughts on this, then we would encourage you guys to leave us a like and comment if you have any thoughts on this that you would like to discuss in the comments. We'd be happy to reply to those and see what you guys have to think. And don't forget that we have a Discord channel, Discord that you can join up on and talk to us about it on there. We have several channels on there that we can talk about some of this sort of things, new releases, and any theory crafting that you have. We have a theory crafting channel dedicated to this sort of thing. And if you have any ideas on how to build a good More Dakka detachment list, then we'd be happy to see it there.
Yeah, don't tear apart my list. It's just what I'm capable of running. So I'm looking forward to running the more Dakka detachment, and I'm curious to hear everybody else's thoughts if they run orcs or if they have a friend that runs orcs and they're nervous about it. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And yeah, it's exciting. We got a new balanced data slate. We got new stuff. It's fun.
Yeah, it's always exciting when we get balanced data slates. We're very positive about the balanced data slate in general. I think we can talk about it at a later time. If you guys want to hear our thoughts on the general balanced data slates, please let us know in the comments. We'll definitely cover it if there's a demand for it. Um, just a reminder that we have finally set up the coffee page for you guys to check out if you want to uh, if you are feeling generous enough to donate to the channel. We certainly do not want you to do that if you're not financially stable. Don't feel like you have to do that, but if you are feeling generous enough to do so. We do definitely appreciate that.
And then again, join the Discord if you want to. It's free to join. We don't want to make you guys pay to like talk to us because we want to interact with you guys as much as possible. And we love to hear your ideas. And shout out to the guys who've already joined. It's been a pleasure interacting with you so far. And we look forward to meeting more of you.
Yeah, definitely. So, like if you like it, and comment if you have thoughts on it and disagree with us or agree with us. Who knows? But like if you liked it, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Later, guys. Bye.